Hello and welcome to R2C Elite Podcast. This used to be the Benny podcast, but it's changed recently and I haven't really done a podcast in quite a long time. This will be the first one that's not being done live on my Twitch and is going to go up on my YouTube. If you are new to R2C Elite, it is a college football 26 dynasty filled out with users. Every game is streamed, whether they're computer or a user game. And it's just a bunch of content creators basically just out there having a good time. We're in Discord, we're trash talking each other, we're trash talking each other in other podcasts that are done live, and it's just a fun time. It's very friendly. Sometimes it gets out of hand, but we handle that. It is a sim style type league, so if you break rules, you get sanctioned. You just got to take those sanctions on the chin. Now, of course, if you want to follow the other coaches, follow me here, follow me on Twitch, reach out. We will get you connected with these other coaches. If you have a specific team you'd like to watch, we probably have that specific team in our dynasty somewhere, and you will see that throughout this podcast of which teams are user based. Now, for this podcast, we will be using, I will have a top 10 user teams list, as you can see. This list will be my opinion and my opinion only on how I believe that these teams match up with each other and deserve to be in the top 10. So the number one team should be able to beat anybody on this list. This is not a recency bias list. So if a team is fifth and that team has beaten the number two team on this list, that doesn't matter to me all too much because I believe on a neutral field, this is how this would go. It is not a if they're playing at LSU and that the number one team loses to LSU. That doesn't matter. Right? That's a neutral site game. That's where I'm going by this top 10 list. It's a neutral site, who would be favored, and so forth. And then you can also see we have a team stat list here as well. We're going to be going over a few of these with like rushing yards, passing yards allowed, total defense, so forth, so on and so forth. The top 10 user teams will be the last. So let's kind of jump in. I will switch over to my screen here and bang. All right. So right away, you can see I coach Penn State. So if you are a Penn State fan, I went to Penn State. I've been at Penn State all this time. We are now in season 6 of this. So we're in year 2030. We're about halfway through. Um, so yeah, let's dive in. Let's start with some team stats here. I always like doing team stats. And we will also talk about coaches that could be fired and what we're going to do there. So according to this list here, we will go over the top 10. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So top 10 offenses based off of yards per game, as you can see. You have Oklahoma with 522.1. You have USC, Tulane, Missouri, SMU, and then the top 5 is Michigan, Cal, Illinois, Florida State, and James Madison. Now, of course, James Madison is in the Sun Belt, so a lot of times you'll see like a Sun Belt team or like Tulane in here. And a lot of these games early on were computer games, but we don't take that into account. If you're balling out against a computer, you're balling out against a computer. Like, if you're not balling out against a computer, then you're not a top offense in this league. I don't care what you're trying to say. If you're struggling against a computer, you're probably struggling against users, and you're not going to be on this list. So shout out James Madison. Shout out Florida State and shout out Illinois for being in the top 3 in this list for yards per game. Now, if we wanted to go by total offensive yards, that changes just a slight bit here. We're going to exclude any computers, by the way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So a lot of those teams that have yards per game, total offensive yards, they're going to be on here. Illinois, Texas Tech, Florida State, USC, James Madison, SMU, A&M in the top 3, Missouri, Oklahoma, or Cal, and then Oklahoma. As you can tell, not all of them have, like, Cal has more yards per game than Oklahoma does. But Oklahoma has had a few games where they've balled out. Now, I think this stat shows more of like handling the computer, because if you're average, you might struggle against the user, but then you might have a few games against computer you're balling out. So that this stat is better than yards per game. If you want to look at pass yards per game and who leads there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oklahoma, there you can go. Oklahoma has number 1 most offensive yards in the game, but in pass, they're number 10. And then NC State Florida State, Florida, Cal, Illinois, USC, Texas Tech, SMU, and James Madison. Very pass heavy, as you can tell. Most of these people that are here are not going to have the same rush yards. The only one I can already tell are Oklahoma, because they have a lot of total yards. They were number 1 total yards, so they're going to have a lot of rushing yards. So passing yards goes top 3, Texas Tech, SMU, James Madison. I mean, offensive scheme, as you can tell. Run and shoot for SMU is very funny to me, but we can look at passing yards per game, and it's going to line up very similarly. But I'm really just focused on passing yards total, not really passing yards per game. Yards per game is fine. That basically tells you all you need to know. Now, I do like looking at passing touchdowns. So you might have a lot of passing yards, but are you finishing those drives when passing? Are you throwing the ball for touchdowns? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So Texas Tech, Florida, Missouri, Florida State all have 27. USC with 30. A&M with 32. Michigan, Illinois tied for third with 33. Cal has 35, and number 1, James Madison. And we move on here to rush yards per game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So as you could tell, a lot of our users are throwing the football. So this is just rush yards on the year, not rush yards per game. Sorry, I should say that differently. So Colorado, Tennessee, Tulane, LSU, Virginia Tech, South Alabama, A&M, Cal, Missouri, and Oklahoma. I know it can be tough when I'm getting over here now because it doesn't want to show you who's the user, but I'll only shout out the users. Oklahoma is ahead by a large margin. Now let's go here and look at offense or rushing yards per game. And I'm just going to go down the list. So number 1, we'll start at number 1 this time. Number 1 is Oklahoma, Missouri, Cal, A&M, South Alabama, LSU. Washington's on this list. Tulane, Virginia Tech, and that's probably the top 10. And you have Florida State as well. Rushing yards per game, or rushing touchdowns per game. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Rushing touchdowns on the year. So Oklahoma, Missouri, A&M, Tennessee, South Alabama, Penn State. Yeah. So as you can see, Oklahoma runs the ball very well. So to me, Oklahoma has a very good offense. Whether you look at it in the way that we're looking at it and being like, well, they're just scoring a lot against computers and not users, but they are the number 1 ranked team in the nation. They're undefeated, which means they're dominating. Yes, their strength schedule might go into this. But again, if you're balling out against computers and users, it doesn't matter because you're balling out. If you're struggling against computers, you're not an elite user. You're going to struggle again and lose games. And that's why you're going to see Oklahoma at number 1 and like Missouri and these top ranked teams up here, because they're not just balling out against computers, but they're also balling out against users. If you ball out against computers, a lot of times that's going to transition into what you like, and you're going to figure it out, and you're going to ball out against users as well. So on the flip side, we're just going to do yards per game and total offensive yards, but we're going to do who are the worst users in these scenarios. So it might take a minute to find this, but Miami is the worst offensive team in the league on offensive yards. They have the least amount of offensive yards in the league. That is followed by Kansas. As you can see, what am I saying? Are these teams ranked? No. So, and then UCLA is over here. UCLA is 1-1, 4-1. They're a really good team. So they're not playing as good offense, but they might have a better defense. Indiana is on this list here. Washington is on this list. Very, very Big Ten heavy, but I feel like there's just Big Ten football. Iowa's on this list. Then we're getting up there in the yards a little bit with South Alabama, North Carolina. On the flip side, what about yards per game? Kansas has the worst yards per game. Miami has the second on this list. South Alabama, North Carolina, Indiana. So you can see like UCLA was on the yards, but they're not over on the yards per game. So they have a higher like total of yards per game. And I missed some up here, but Ole Miss, Colorado, Iowa, Penn State's on this list. So yeah, offense, you can see what we went through right there. If you're dominating offense, if you're controlling, I don't know if is time possession on here. No, time possession is not on here. I wish it was. I wish you could see which teams are like methodical. And we'll also look at most points per game as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Tennessee here with just over 50 points per game. Tulane with 51. Illinois with about 53. A&M and Michigan at 54 is hilarious having the same number. It's tough to do. Ohio State 54 and 3. USC 54 and 6. James Madison 57 and 7. Florida State 58 and 7. And of course, Missouri at 64 and 3. They love putting up points against people, and they love telling you about it too. So if you ever want somebody to trash talk, it's right there. He loves trash talking. Now, Miami's been a real struggle bus. 1-5, 0-3. First year coach, I believe, at Miami, only putting up 16.8 points per game. Next on this list is probably Kansas. Yeah, Kansas on this list, 25.4. And then you kind of just have a big gap because South Alabama is putting up 29.1. North Carolina's in the 30 range. Once we're in the 30 range, I mean, that's pretty good. You're putting up 30-plus points a game. You're being solid. All right, let's move on to the defense of side. And let's start with points per game allowed. So who's been giving up the most points per game? Not a shocker. Miami at 57.2. Illinois 42.8. James Madison here 42.2. And then there's a bigger gap here. Washington 36, Indiana 34.5. Like, it's just not good. Cal 32.9, Virginia Tech 32.8, Texas Tech is 31.1. And then we get down here, which is about halfway through. So NC State 29.7, USC 29.4, Penn State 29.3, South Alabama 20.3, and so on and so forth. But who has the lowest amount? Who's getting not scored on a lot? Oklahoma. Really good offense. Doesn't give it a lot of points. 15.3 point per game allowed. Tennessee 15.9. Oregon 17.8. Michigan 18.3. A&M 19.9. North Carolina's 20.7. Colorado 20.7 as well. LSU is 21.3. Ole Miss 22.4, Florida 22.7, Iowa is on this list 23.3, Florida State and Ohio State, and then we get down towards the 25s. But let's stick here. So that's points per allowed game. I don't really care about points allowed. I'd rather know how many you're giving up per game. All right, let's move on to yards per game. This is probably the best defenses if you're not giving up a lot of yards per game. Tennessee, Michigan, Oklahoma, North Carolina, A&M, which is North Carolina's on this list. They're 6-1, not ranked, but they're 6-1. They could be ranked very soon. A&M, Florida, Colorado, Tulane, Oregon, Florida State, Texas Tech, LSU, Ole Miss, Penn State, all under 4. I mean, if you're under 400, I mean, you can tell. Let's look at who's giving up the most yards per game. James Madison is on this list. So we've talked about really good offense, maybe not a great defense. Over 500 yards per game given up by James Madison. Illinois is up here, 496. Miami, 489. I'm assuming Kansas is going to be somewhere up here too. Well, there's a bigger gap here, actually. Indiana is the next team, 417. Washington, 412. 406 for Virginia Tech and Cal. Missouri is on this list at 403. SMU at 401. Kansas under 400. So, all right. So who's giving up the most pass yards per game? Or who's giving up the most? James Madison, 412 yards per game given up. Illinois up here. Washington, Indiana, USC, 335. Really good USC team giving up a lot of pass yards. Iowa, Miami, Penn State is up here 315. Missouri is up here 314. Kansas 309. SMU's 309. NC State 301. Then we have everyone else under 300. Who has the best? Who's given up the least amount of pass yards per game? UCLA. 219 a game. Really, really good. A little bit of a gap here. 235 is Tennessee. Michigan, LSU, both at 241. Texas Tech and Florida up here. Colorado. So as you can see, there's some gap. There's a major gap in defenses. Who's given up the least amount of rushing yards per game? Tennessee's only given up 26.3 rushing yards per game. Penn State's only given up 28.7. Oklahoma's only given up 32.3. North Carolina, 34.7. FSU, 36.5. Michigan, 36.8. Iowa, 43. Oregon, 43.8. USC, as you can see, every user has dominated the run game. Do we have a user? Yes, we do. Who's given up a lot of rushing yards per game? Miami with 165.7. And then who's close to 165.7? UCLA's at 144. A lot of rushing yards per game given up. Bigger gap again, 126.4. Virginia Tech's given up a lot of rushing yards. So maybe these are teams you're looking at and like, I can run the ball. They don't have a great front seven. These are teams that when a user plays them, they're probably running the football because they're getting a good chunk of yards. When we're halfway through the season, you're giving up over 120 yards per game on the ground. I don't know if you can fix that halfway through the season. That's tough to fix halfway through the season. All right, how about sack leaders? We won't look at who has the least amount of sacks. We'll look at sack leaders. Michigan leads the country at 35 sacks. Tennessee with 32. Tulane also at 32. Oklahoma, 29. A&M, 29. 29 as well as JMU. 28 Florida State. 28 Ohio State. 27 Iowa. 25 at Oregon. 25 at NC State. 24 and 24 for Colorado and Penn State. Kansas with 23. So you can see a lot of users get in there. I don't know who is the least amount, actually. I do want to look at that. Who is the least amount of sacks? Virginia Tech at 12. Anyone has less than 12? No, looks like... So, UCLA. Sorry, 5 sacks. That's crazy. So, like, Virginia Tech and UCLA are teams that you're looking at, and you're like, I can pass the ball because they're giving me time to pass the ball. Another thing I like to talk about, conversions. If you're getting the third down, are you converting? So the best third down teams in the country, Oklahoma, 77%. Florida, 65%. Tennessee, 65%. Ohio State, 64%. A&M, 62%. Oregon, 61%. Tulane, 60%. Washington, 59%. 58% for Penn State, sorry. Ole Miss, 57%. North Carolina, 57%. So you have a lot of these teams above 50%. So once I start looking, once you're at 50% or lower. So these teams right here, 50% even. Tech, USC, Illinois, SMU, and Iowa all at 50%. Who has Miami is on this list. Miami is going to be on the bottom of this list a lot. Only 28% on third down. And then you have a big gap from 28% all the way to Kansas here at 37%. Again, not shocking. Colorado not getting it done on third down with 40%. Anyone else? LSU, 45%. So these are teams that you're looking at. Yep, those are teams that you're looking at. And you're like, all right, once they get the third down, they're struggling. They're struggling big time. Let's talk about fourth down percentage. When you're going for it on fourth down, are you doing it? SMU's only gone for it on one time, which is a good thing. You're looking at fourth down attempts, and you're like, okay, 0%, but they only had to go for it once on fourth down. Who's going for it a lot? See, this is hard when you get into this because you have a lot of 100%ers that have only gone one time. They're 1 for 1. So, like, I would say 5 times or more. Like, 4 for 4 is really good. 8 for 9, really good by A&M. 5 for 6 for Florida State is really good. Missouri, 9 for 11 is really good. Penn State's 4 for 5, which is really, I would say, solid. 8 for 10, fantastic. 80% doesn't look great, but 8 for 10 is a really good number. 4 for 5, again, 80%, but you're 4 for 5. So a lot of guys go for a fourth down, they're getting it. 2-point conversions I also would not look at because a lot of people don't go for it on 2 unless they absolutely have to. Red zone efficiency is kind of a broken number that I'm going to jump over because it's only really looking at offensive red zone touchdown rate, and then you have like field goals. So like, I don't like this number. We are going to ignore that. Penalties, another thing I'm going to ignore because I don't see it as a thing. Turnovers. Who is the best differential in the league? A&M, an 18 differential. They've only given up 4. They've thrown 4 interceptions. Absolutely insane. But they've taken the ball away 22 times. USC, 17. You have 6 giveaways and 23 takeaways. NC State's on this list. Yeah, they've given the ball. They're 12 differential. They've given up 11, but they've taken away 23. So, yeah, they give up a lot, but they take away a lot. Oregon is on this at 6. You're starting to see the number of, or 11, sorry. You're starting to see the number shrink a little bit, but 3 giveaways, but don't have a lot of takeaways, but you're looking at guys that don't give the ball away a lot, but they also don't take the ball away a lot. LSU is on this list with 10. Tulane, 9. Missouri's 9. Tennessee's 9. We have a little bit of a gap here, 6 with 5, SMU. Ohio State has 5. Penn State with 4. Kansas has a positive 1 at 4. Oklahoma is barely positive at 3, so they're giving away a lot. They're taking away just enough to be positive. Iowa at 3, Ole Miss with 3. So as soon as you start to get closer to the 0 number, you're looking at guys that give the ball away and also take it away either at a high number or a low number. So like Ole Miss is only giving up 7 takeaways, but they've only taken 10, which is a good amount for halfway through the season. But you're not giving up a lot either. So 3 is okay. As long as you're positive, I would say you're okay. UCLA is here at 2. Colorado is at 1. They've given up almost exactly the amount. Florida State is at our first person at 0. So same amount of takeaways, same amount of giveaways. Florida State is Florida is our first negative number here. Gives the ball up, but takes away a lot. North Carolina at -1. Virginia Tech is at -1. Indiana, Illinois, -3 each. James Madison, South Alabama, Washington, all at -5. Cal at -6. 17 giveaways is crazy. Texas Tech at -7 is gross. Michigan, -11. That is a team that loves giving the ball away. 16 giveaways, 5 takeaways. So, team that try to throw down the field against or not be too worried about giving the ball up is Michigan. Of course, Miami down here at 105. -16 is just either these teams are being really aggressive with the ball and they're just not doing it on defense, or they're being very careless. And it's hard to tell when you're not watching every single game. If you're, I've watched Michigan. I know they have some Wi-Fi issues here and there, which is a struggle. But again, if you have Wi-Fi issues, it's part of the game, man. You can't complain too much when your Wi-Fi is down. But Texas Tech, I think they're just overall aggressive, in my opinion. I've seen them play. Definitely aggressive air raid offense, throws the ball a lot. Cal's another one who's a really good user, so probably just a little bit aggressive, but -6 isn't too bad. Being in the negatives is not good, but yeah, so those are the team stats for this season so far halfway through the year. So let's talk about some coaches, right? So coaches that might just get fired. And we're really only looking at the coaches that are in our league. I'm not too worried about jobs that are opening up, but like these are teams that like jobs that can open up that people might want. Now we do have a list of teams that cannot be taken because of some commissioner rules that we have where if somebody just quits the league randomly, like we don't want someone to take over that team. It's a bit unfair sometimes. So Texas, Georgia Tech, TCU, teams that are probably going to open. Miami, first season head coach at 1-5. If he keeps losing, I don't know if he's going to be the head coach in Miami too much longer. And being 1-5 in this league is not good. You're looking at probably getting fired, and then you're either done with the league or you're just gonna have to go to like a non P4 school. So I assume another team on this list is probably gonna be Kansas. Oh, okay, I lied. Okay, so Virginia Tech is safe for now at 80%. They'll be fine. That he's been there for a while, and I think he only really leaves if someone makes him or if he really just struggles. Florida is on this list, but again, safe for now, 86%, and everyone else is above 90 and not worried. So really, the only coach on this list is Miami. Kansas, we've talked about struggling, but he's been at Kansas for a while now. He's 17-26 with Kansas, and they seem to be perfectly fine with 17-26 being their coach. 99% is his. So Kansas is just chilling. They're like, he's fine with us. So yeah, and everyone else is at 100%. So Miami's the only coach worried about getting fired. For other coaches that are looking to leave, you're looking at Texas, Georgia Tech, TCU, Iowa State, Purdue, Bama, Oregon State, Tulsa, Virginia, Vanderbilt, Georgia, Charlotte, Auburn, USC, Kent State. A lot of these schools are going to start to open and then looking for head coaches in our league. All right, so let's jump. And this is probably a quicker podcast, but I just wanted to get into it a little bit more. Let's talk about the top 25 before we move on to my top 10 list of users. So if we're looking at the top 25, we're still in the media top 25. We're still in the media top 25. Texas Tech started the year really ranked high. They have dropped all the way to 25. Cal is ranked 24. They're 6-2. They still have a perfect opportunity to get back to where they need to be. If we look at their schedule really quick. So the teams that they've lost to are Florida State and NC State. So they can't, I don't think they'll get into the ACC title game, but they have a top 10 SMU. So if they just win out, really good chance to try to get back into the playoff picture. It's going to be really tough, though, being that far back. We'll just talk about some other teams. Ole Miss at 22, Florida at 21, Tulane at 19. Right now, Tulane at the playoffs, Florida Atlantic would be the team that if they were to win the American over Tulane, that's what this is shaping up to be here, is whoever wins this is probably the group of 5. Illinois at 17. They did just lose to Penn State, so they will be dropping, but they will still be ranked. Indiana just lost to Michigan, so they are 16. Will drop. Colorado is here. Penn State is here at 14. Ohio State at 13. NC State at 12. UCLA 11. SMU at 10. SMU at 10. LSU at 9. Oregon at 8. FSU 7. Missouri 6. Michigan 5. USC 4. A&M 3. Tennessee at 2. And Oklahoma at 1. Now, this is very close if you look at the top votes between Oklahoma and Tennessee. Both have tough games. I believe Oklahoma beat South Carolina, and then LSU in this game. Tennessee and LSU is going down at some point today. So teams that are right now on the out looking into the playoffs, I would consider Tulane on that list because they have their another American here. I'm not too worried. I think Tulane goes on and wins the American. They don't play Florida Atlantic, but they'll play them in the conference championship game, and that game will most likely be a playoff game to get into the playoffs. Florida, you're in the SEC, you're 5-2. You just lost to LSU, but of course you went out, and you probably have a top 10 matchup at the end of the year. You could still get in and go in 10-2. I would say Ole Miss has a long shot at getting in. If we're gonna look at schedules here, their 2 losses are to Oregon A&M. Again, 2 top 10 teams. They also beat SMU. But they have a really good chance. You have LSU, Colorado, and Tennessee, teams that are all in front of you that you can play and get in. Like, you're only 3-1. You could get into the SEC title game. Illinois is going to have a really tough road ahead of them. They just lost to Penn State by 1, but they do have 2 top 10 games to finish the year. So, of course, they could still get in. They only have 1 Big Ten loss. Indiana most likely is going to have to win out, and they're going to need a lot of help. I believe they're 2-1 now in the Big Ten, and they have teams in front of them that they can beat. So never say never to getting into the Big Ten championship because they need some help. Colorado right now it's 6-1. All they have to do is win out. You're in, and you're in. Penn State, you win out, you're probably in. And that's because you play Ohio State. So Ohio State needs. I wouldn't say Ohio State needs to win out. Their one loss was just Oregon, so they also have one loss in the Big Ten, and then they still have Iowa, Indiana, Penn State, and Michigan. So some tough games. We'll see. They're a first-year user. We'll really see how they handle the pressure. NC State, you're already in currently. Just win out. And then every team from here on out is in if you just win out. But, of course, we're halfway through the year. This is going to change a lot. Pocket playoffs is tough. But for teams like right in this range of like the top 25, you're still in. Now, Texas Tech, most likely your season is cooked. You don't have any teams ranked in that you get to play for the rest of the year. I believe they've also lost to every ranked team they've played other than NC State. But you could still make the Big 12 championship game. He did just lose to a computer, which is really tough. If you lose to a computer, a lot of times your season just feels like it's kind of blown up. So with them losing, they're still first in the Big 12, but Colorado, I think, is right now the leader if we look at the conference standings. So we go to the conference standings and you look at like the Big 12. Yeah, Texas Tech, Colorado now jump up here. Texas Tech can still win the Big 12 and get in, and that would really put a lot of that would be really bad for a lot of teams, especially depending on where Texas Tech is ranked at that time. You might need to be top 10 by that point. All right, so let's get into my top 10 users as we talked about earlier. As we talked about earlier, we went over the team stats. And again, I'm going to remind you that my top 10 users are based on neutral site games. They're not based on what happened this season. They're based on if these two played, who would win on a neutral site field. Let's get into it, shall we? Bang. So, number 10, Texas Tech, and we talked about them. They just lost to a computer. But I think if they played anybody else underneath them, they probably win that game on a neutral site field. Oregon, another one. I believe they've beaten some really good teams this year. They could get in and just beat anybody on a neutral site field. Michigan struggled with Indiana, but they have a lot to prove. They're undefeated. They could win the Big Ten. They've done it. But I don't think they're better than UCLA and USC. Next on this list, UCLA. UCLA, really solid team. They did lose to Penn State, but that was at Penn State, so we're not putting that into perspective here. I think if that game was switched, UCLA probably wins. It was a really, really close game. UCLA beat Penn State at Penn State. That's my bad. Florida State on this list. I think Florida State could beat anybody below them. LSU could beat anybody below them. Once we get into the top 5, this is where it gets pretty dicey. I think anybody in this top 5 on a neutral site field could beat anybody in the top 5. So this is where it's like a shoestring of difference, or even less than that, probably just a guitar string of difference between these top 5 teams. I think LSU could beat SMU. I think LSU could beat Tennessee, but it's just, in my opinion, right now, LSU would lose to SMU. SMU would lose to Missouri right now. Missouri would lose to Tennessee, and USC would beat everybody on this list. Now, we did see, this is what we're going to talk about. People are going to be like, well, SMU beat USC. Well, yes, but I think if they played again, it doesn't happen. Very similar to in real life with Oregon, Ohio State. Ohio State played at Oregon. This was last year, not this season. And they lost to Oregon very close. Then they played them again in the playoff, and they just beat them on a neutral site. Just mop the floor. So that's what I'm taking in perspective here with my top 10 teams. Again, this is not a ranking. This is a who would beat who in a user matchup on a neutral site field. So that is going to be the end of the podcast. It's a very short podcast, just under 40 minutes here. It looks like we're going to conclude. This will be going up on my YouTube channel. If you like the content, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. I love criticism. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. Let me know what you want to see in this. Let me know what you don't want to see in this, etc. So this has been a fun time trying to get back into this, doing a kind of a podcast form, going over very big numbers that you can see on the screen, and not just seeing a top 10 list of top 10 offenses. Why are these offenses so good? What are they doing? Rushing yards per game, total defense, etc. So again, much love to everyone that is watching this. If you want to watch Tennessee take on LSU, that's a top 10 matchup. We're going to see that here sometime today, probably after the Super Bowl. This is going to be going up very shortly, so you will be watching this before that game probably kicks off. But yeah, so we have the rest of the season of season 6. Recruiting rankings is something that I kind of leave to SMU and their head coach. He is very good with the recruiting side of videos and that content that he's been creating. Tennessee's head coach, Double D, does a really good podcast, very similar to this, but very much numbers of top 10 teams that he thinks, like who's the Elite 8, etc. And then you have Sir Talks, who is Iowa's head coach, who does similar to what I was just saying, of he just throws numbers in the ChatGPT, and ChatGPT spits numbers out saying these are the top 10 defenses, these are the most overrated teams, these are the most underrated teams, etc., etc. He doesn't really put too much thought. He just feeds it and then talks about it. And then I like to go like this and predict, oh, here's the actual numbers. And then here are the teams I think could win a neutral field if they played in the postseason, possibly. So yeah, much love. We'll probably do another episode. We're in week 8. I'll probably do another one closer to championship weekend and the playoffs, talking about which teams could get in, which teams couldn't, maybe around week 12 or week 13. So that will be all from me. I am excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see from your feedback. And as always, much love. Peace.